Today, we're going to be talking about how a very powerful and wealthy United States Senator suddenly lost his life when his main engine pipe ripped wide open, and how a massive gap in our mainstream medical system almost sent one of my clients into a premature grave at 35,000 feet. But more importantly, I'm going to give you guys three incredibly simple things that you can do on your very next flight to protect yourself from a catastrophic plumbing failure while you're in the air. Now, before we go any further, let's lay out the ground rules. I am a retired eye doctor. I'm not your personal cardiologist. I do not know your pipes, and I am not writing you a prescription. I'm just going to be sharing with you how I partnered with my client's brilliant medical team to protect him during a high stakes transition. Always coordinate very closely with your physician. Now look, as a 62-year-old retired eye doctor, I don't look at health in the same way that your doctors do. I come from a family of medal-winning elite athletes who still developed, unfortunately, metabolic disease, heart failure. And why? Because they trusted the mainstream protocols that come from the medical industry, from the health and fitness industry, from the wellness industry, from the biohacking industry. And these industries, unfortunately, created a system where a lot of men are out there where they are building up pressure in a system, and it's going to end up blowing up. And that is exactly what happened to Senator Lindsey Graham. He was a man who had access to the finest medical minds on the planet. Yet his aorta, the main pipe carrying blood from his heart, literally tore open. Why? Because mainstream system is obsessed with treating symptoms with a lifetime prescription subscription instead of cleaning out his pipes. They tell you to wait and see, and wait and see. Attitude ends up, unfortunately, in a death sentence sometimes. Look, when it comes to how I look at the clinical world, I am doing this from a perspective of the 80% of what goes wrong with you is your lifestyle. The other 20% comes from the doctors. They're going to be able to help you. And that's why I'm not opposed to the medical system. I'm actually in collaboration with them. Now, let's talk about Senator Lindsey Graham. He actually probably had a long-standing problem that they just didn't catch from his blood work. Unfortunately, mainstream medicine, guys, is set up to manage crisis, and they're very good at managing a crisis. What they're not good at, or they're not trained for, nor are they paid to help you to reverse that problem or manage it while tapping into your body's own built-in mechanisms. Now, just a few months ago, a man reached out to me because he had just been diagnosed with a suspected aortic aneurysm, which is what Senator Lindsey Graham had passed away from. That is exactly the balloon that is going to be ready to pop inside your chest. And to make matters worse, this man was getting ready to board a flight to Japan from California because that's where his daughter lives. And he has another daughter, I think, that lives in Germany. So this was really important for him to be able to get on a long haul flight. But I told him, do not get on that plane until we know for sure what's going on with that aortic aneurysm. Now, I got to actually go with him to his next cardiology appointment. And I want to be clear, the cardiologist that he went to was absolutely brilliant. I'd highly recommend him to anybody. But he did exactly what any top-tier specialist is trained to do. He looked at the initial scan and said, the scan might be lying because the angle of the test can create that illusion of an aortic aneurysm. So let's run a deeper, highly advanced scan to verify if the balloon is actually there. That is world-class judgment, and I'm thankful that he had a great cardiologist to do that. But then my client asked him if he was still clear to fly to Japan before he got those new lab results back. Cardiologist said, because obviously cardiologists are very busy and on a tight schedule, an insurance mandated schedule that's going to push him to not have as much time with his patients as he probably wants. So he just said, oh, sure, go ahead and fly. I wasn't angry at the doctor. I was just shocked by the system. You see, a busy specialist is only going to be paid to diagnose and to perform procedures. They don't have the hours required to evaluate cabin pressure, analyze what a long-haul flight dehydration pattern looks like, or to do any custom travel safety protocols for a patient who might have a ticking time bomb in his chest. he's off the hook. But here's the thing. I want you guys to know that just because that doctor's not paid to do it doesn't mean you don't need the information. This is where someone like me comes in as an elite health strategist, because I'm going to bridge that gap between what the doctors do for you and what you need to do for yourself. This is why you can't blindly rely on standard office visit protocols to protect your life. If you want to know what's actually happening inside your plumbing before you board your next flight, I want you to go down to the description box below and grab my free lab hit list. This is the exact list that I give of routine lab tests to all of my clients. Now look, your doctor has direct access to every single one of these tests I'm going to ask for, but because they are so busy and starved for time, they almost never have the opportunity to order them or to explain to you why you need them. Because a great looking package on the outside means absolutely nothing if the lab results on the inside are a dumpster fire. I'm going to remind you, think back to an NBC News anchor, David Bloom. He was only 39 years old. He looked fit, he looked healthy, and he was at the top of his game. While he was covering the war in Iraq, he was sitting inside of a lot of cramped armored vehicles for days.
Bloom made sure that he was in the center of the action.
Tom, we're under attack right now.
The danger of combat and difficult desert conditions weren't the only problems.
We all slept with our legs up in the air, our legs pulled up to our chests. Dave, was doing the same thing. We were dehydrated, stressed, we were cramped.
He started rubbing his leg on camera, actually, and I'm going to see if I can put that up.
He complained of what he thought was a pulled muscle. Later that day, we walked over to a medic, and we got some ibuprofen for a little bit of the pain, and didn't think too much of it.
There was a military doctor to see, but because the pain was temporary and it went away, what do you think happened? He ignored it. And a silent jelly-like blood clot, what doctors call a deep vein thrombosis, formed in his leg. That's why he was rubbing it. And unfortunately, this killed him instantly because it went from his leg straight up into his lungs.
And I saw someone horizontal in the dirt. And I looked over, looked again, and it was David. And I ran over and saw David with a dazed look on his face. Immediately, I yelled, "Medic!" We got an IV in him. I held him by the hand, by the arm. He looked up at me, and his pupils just dilated out and fixed. The sergeant, I remember him ripping off his helmet and just yelling, "Oh, God!" And I knew what it was. He reached his hand back to me, and I grabbed his hand and bit my lip and fought back the tears, and it was real. David was gone.
He left behind, unfortunately, a very young wife and 3 very young daughters. That is the reality, guys, of a silent plumbing failure. To make sure this never happens to you, here are 3 very simple things you must do on your next long haul flight. And when I say long, I mean anything longer than 3 hours. The first thing you want to do is you want to focus on cellular hydration. Most travelers are going to drink tap water or any popular bottled water. But all that's going to do, guys, is wet your whistle. You have to make sure that you drink natural spring water. But the best water to drink is going to be one that is mineral water. Like, for instance, I like Pellegrino because it comes in a glass bottle, so you don't get the obesogens from the plastic. And it has a little bit of a salty taste to it, and it's going to give your body the minerals you need so that your cells can get hydrated rather than just wetting your whistle. And why is cellular hydration so important? Because that's what's going to keep your blood flowing like a river instead of turning into a sticky, stagnant swamp at 35,000 feet. Second thing I want you to do is, this is pretty simple. Your calves are your secondary heart. They're going to pump your circulatory system of blood from your feet up back to your heart so you can get oxygen. So what I want you to do is toe raises, heel raises. You want to do knee raises, and you can do those sitting or standing. And every now and then I want you to get up and walk to the back of the plane and then stand up for a few minutes, and then that way you keep the fluid moving. Now, third, I want you to completely avoid the pre-flight espresso. Caffeine, guys, is a diuretic. It's going to drain the fluid right out of your pipes, leaving behind thick, concentrated sludge. Combine that with dehydration, with hours of sitting on a plane at 35,000 feet, you are practically begging for a silent killer to form in your leg. Back to my client. The good news is that when he got his advanced test back for the aortic aneurysm, it turned out that the balloon in his chest was actually a false alarm. He did not have that aneurysm. But we didn't stop there. We utilized that terrifying scare as a wake-up call to make changes that he needed so that he could take control of his life. And under my private guidance, in just 3 months, we dropped his floating grease, which I guess they would call the LDL, and sticky sludge levels by a massive 40%. Cleaned out his plumbing fast. And on top of that, he shed the belly fat, shrunk his waistline. Now he gets to donate his fat clothes because he'll never need those again. Today, he looks more handsome, more fit, and has a lot more energy in a body that actually works much more efficiently. So what I can get done in a few days on a private house call, mainstream medicine hasn't been able to fix for over 20 or 30 years for these men. Do not wait until you're clutching your chest on a plane. Click the link in the description right now and get my free lab hit list so that you can see exactly what needs to be measured. And I'll see you guys on the next video.